Welcome to the D-Shift podcast, where we provide inspiration, motivation, and education to help you transition from the challenges of divorce to discover the freedom and ability to live life on your own terms. Are you ready? Let's get this shift started. Hello and welcome to another episode of the D-Shift podcast. And today, despite the fact that we've done almost 150 episodes, we are going to have an expert on today to talk about a topic that we have not covered and one that is so important in the divorce process. So Maria Natapov is a step parenting expert and a trusted advisor to divorce professionals, financial advisors, and parenting coaches. And what she does is work with people who are stepping into the role of step parents or who are dealing with how to help the kids get comfortable if they're in a new relationship or thinking about moving into a new relationship post-divorce. And this whole big factor about let's face it, the sometimes very big challenges of blending families post-divorce. So, Maria, welcome to the D-Shift.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, so am I, because it's such a necessary conversation. Because I can tell you from working with divorce clients, some of them I've seen through more than one marriage and divorce, that blending families is a big factor in parental conflict post-divorce, especially when because blended families, it's not just you and the other partner, it's you and the other partner and their ex and your ex and grandparents and everybody else that all gets involved, right?
Exactly. And I love that you underscored that because that's exactly it. It's all the players.
Yeah. So let's talk before we jump into this topic, because like I say, I think this is really cool that I've never had an opportunity to speak with somebody on this, but let's talk a little bit about you. So what got you into this and why is this now your area of focus, Maria?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. So I am a child of divorce and my parents did not have a smooth divorce and separation, and it was tumultuous and it was ongoing over the course of many years. And then later on, when I was in high school and college, they both remarried, and I was thrown into a step family situation, and it was really difficult. And also I'm going to be dating myself here, but this was a while ago, and I think our also understanding back then of all of that was very different. But on top of it, I'm an immigrant. So my family is already coming from a culture that approaches this stuff very differently. We don't talk about feelings. And there was a lot that I was needing as far as support that just wasn't available. And I think my parents just had no idea of how to begin to support me in that way, which is why I'm so passionate about this work and about supporting families, not only divorce. I'm also a divorcee, and divorce is devastating. From my first marriage, divorce is absolutely devastating, and it's a bear, and it's devastating financially, it's devastating from a logistical perspective and emotionally. And on top of that, if there's children involved, which in my situation there were not, but if there's children involved, it's that much more devastating because now there's the responsibility of supporting them and helping them to adjust and figuring out all the logistical components for them and how to split up parenting time. It's very difficult. And so that's exactly why I'm passionate about this work. I came into it, I was a step parent because when I met my now husband, he had a daughter, and against my advice to find a more stable role model, he was like, no, because you know what you didn't like when you experienced things when you were in that situation, you are better equipped than you give yourself credit for, which took a little while, but I embraced that. And 5 years into my step parenting role, my stepdaughter revealed she was being abused and neglected by her bio mom and stepdad and came to live with us full time. And I was holding space for the fact that, I'm in a mom role, but not a mom, and helping her navigate through the healing journey. And then last year, I actually ended up adopting my stepdaughter, and she had a lot of say in that. But my heart, I always hold space for, I hope she finds a way to have a relationship with her bio mom, because I know on an energetic level, on an emotional level, on a physical level, it has an impact. We are physiologically wired for those connections. We want those connections. We want it to go well. We want affirmation and positive interactions and, the love. And so I hope that she's able to have that with her bio mom someday in a way where she can stand solidly on her own and feel whole and complete and also have access to that. And that is really, my wish for all families, to the degree that it's available to them. Obviously, I honor the goals of the people that I work with, and that's not necessarily everybody's goal, but I've learned through my personal journey, which has been extensive, as you can maybe imagine, through all of these iterations, that, as we're able to take a step back and look at how do we want to look back on this chapter in our lives, whatever the chapter is, whether we're at the beginning or contemplating the divorce, or whether we're in the thick of it, or whether we're beyond it and are finding a way to navigate co-parenting and supporting our kids through this. What do we want that to look like, and how do we want to feel about it?
Right.
And ultimately, it comes down to hopefully having no regrets, right?
Yeah.
Which usually means doing a very difficult thing that almost feels inaccessible in the moment.
Right.
But I'm here to tell you, if you move boldly towards that, it is available, it is possible. And the growth that I have found and the fulfillment and the expansion that I couldn't even wrap my mind around, or would have never thought was available to me, has been outstanding and incredible. And it's been so liberating. And it's really a gift. I think when you're able to forgive and move beyond some of the immediate circumstances and some of the immediate emotions that come up, it is a gift that you give not only to your children and to your ex, but to yourself.
Yes. Yeah. Because it's that, nobody wants to live in a house of chaos. I mean, nobody does. Adults don't want to, kids, your pets don't want to live in a house full of chaos. And
Exactly.
so what can you do? This is where I always feel frustrated is I get that you can be mad at your ex, but when that is starting to affect your children's ability to feel comfortable and loved and cared for, then you're not hurting your ex anymore. You're destroying your children. And I know this, a lot of people get upset when I say this, but you're choosing to do it. And, we're not blind to the fact that this is happening. And so,
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit, because I know that, there's a difference between, what some step parents do, which is just don't do anything with the kids. Or then there's the step parent that becomes like the helicopter parent that thinks that they're better than either one of the bio parents. What would good step parent support look like? And I realize it's going to look different based on the ages of the children, but can you give some kind of general characteristics?
Yeah. I think the first thing I'd like to just touch on briefly before I answer that question is some of what you mentioned, which is I think that sometimes it's so overwhelming to know what your role is and what's available that there's so much fear that you're just like, I don't want to overstep. I'm just going to do nothing. And there's a little bit of shell shock
Right.
attached to it. And then I think at other times there's this powerful responsibility of like, okay, I'm going to step into the step parenting shoes. I'm going to be a parent. I'm going to do all the things because again, it's unclear what exactly that role is and what is a part of it and what isn't a part of it. Because we're never really, we don't have a clear concept of what is parenting versus step parenting. We're just told this is what good caregiving looks like, right? And so we just want to do all the things and fully support the stepchildren and our partner and just take on the responsibility to whatever degree available, right? Is kind of how we think of it. But the reality is nobody's asking us to do that. And oftentimes it's not available to us because there's already two biological parents and that is their responsibility. And so my advice in the beginning for people is always just go easy and slowly and use all your senses to observe because you're walking into a completely unique and different situation. It's a culture unto itself. There are individuals with specific personalities, needs, and they have a dynamic that's already established, and you're brand new and you don't know these things because every single situation is unique and different.
Right.
So instead of feeling like you need to take on a lot of responsibility, give yourself the time and space to just dip your toe in and walk in slowly and gently and just be observant. What do you notice? And as you observe more, especially intentionally, more will come to light. You will start to notice the patterns. You'll start to notice what's there. And then possibly things will open up as far as what's available, like where you can, join in or provide support or at least be a part of what is there, to whatever degree available. But I definitely strongly suggest discuss it with your partner. Make sure that you guys are on the same page. Kids need that. They need a united front among their caregivers. So whatever inconsistencies there are, privately, get on the same page, have those conversations, hash that stuff out, and ultimately follow their lead because they are the biological parent. But, it is possible to explore, and I call it planting seeds, new concepts, new perspectives. You do have value to offer because you are an outsider. And sometimes parents, they have a different view of their child because they know them since birth.
Right.
And sometimes whatever their impressions are not necessarily exactly what is at this particular stage as their kids are evolving. So you might be able to offer valuable insights on that front, but go gently because it is very personal. The stakes are enormously high. And for them to be open to your suggestions and what you're bringing to the table, you need to go slowly. And remember, likely these conversations can't happen all at once.
Yeah, that what great advice. I love that. The other thing that I think is a big one is if the kids are older, they can help create that role as a step parent
Yes,
and including the children at an age appropriate level, to have a nice, maybe take the kids for a walk and say, what can I do to help you? And maybe they're going to
absolutely.
say, well, I'd like some help with my homework. That's
Yeah,
a whole different thing than you just coming in out of the blue and I'm going to help you with your homework. If that's something that either you know, kids are going to react to step parents differently too, I think.
totally. Yes.
I think really, I love that idea of just observing how the children are reacting and really using them as the guide and talking privately with your partner. Yeah,
Yes. And the
wonderful.
other piece is connection over consequences all day long because again, they have their parents, they're the ones to implement consequences or discipline or what have you. But for your role, it's really about the connection because you are brand new. They're still getting used to you. And a lot of times parents are really ready to move on and kids are not because
Right.
many times they're still hoping for reunification between their parents and they're thinking this is just a temporary situation. And again, you're a reminder for them that you're here, their other parent isn't. That's
Right.
really painful. That's a
Yeah.
lot to adjust to
Yeah.
and a lot to swallow. And kids today also are inundated, I think, with a lot more. They're just confronted with a lot more as far as how to navigate day-to-day life
Right.
than we used to have to be confronted with. And so I think it's a lot. So just having that understanding, remembering that in the back of your mind. And a lot of times what you're seeing as far as behavior is communication.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And what about this is always, I used to teach the co-parenting program, the court ordered one, the 4 hour mandatory. And one of the things that always would come up as a question is, well, my ex has got a new girlfriend or a new boyfriend, and
Yeah.
they are insisting that the kids call the new partner mom or dad. Can
Yeah.
you talk a little bit about why that is probably the worst idea that anybody has ever had and why parents
Yeah.
think this is a good thing? I just don't get it. But um,
Yeah. It may be, I don't know if perhaps the parents are just hoping to kind of normalize the situation, you know? But yeah, you don't want to do that because kids get to decide, they get to choose, and also that person is never going to be mom or dad. And I have no delusions. My daughter calls me mom. Again, I adopted her. She had a lot of say in that. I have no delusions. I'm not mom. legally, like schmegally, whatever, but I'm not.
Right. Right.
That's just the reality, So um, it's just going to be different. It doesn't mean it can't be beautiful and unique and wonderful in its own way. It is. And there's that opportunity. And so don't, my advice around that is just embrace that for what it can be without trying to make it something it's not and fit it into a particular preconceived mold,
Right.
because it's not going to work. And what you're really doing there is stifling your child's voice. And what many may not realize too is it creates a rift where now they're like, oh, I can't talk to mom or dad about this. It
Right.
doesn't feel safe. I
Right.
can't express myself. I can't be authentic. I can't, and
Right.
like that it's not okay to talk about these things. And sometimes it goes even beyond that. Messaging travels to the rest of their lives too. Like, oh, now I can't be vulnerable in these ways because it's not okay and it's not acceptable and people won't understand.
Right. And I think I love your message of listening to the child. So if the child slips up and calls you mom, that's
Yeah.
because they or dad, that's because
Yeah.
you're filling an important role in their life and they shouldn't be punished for that. And if they do want to call you mom or dad, maybe you can sit down as a complete family, step
Yeah.
parents, maybe everybody could sit down and talk about this so that nobody gets upset about it and
Yeah.
people understand where this is coming from. I have to laugh. I taught grade 1 and 2 for many, many years. And I remember one little boy, and this was in the 90s. So this was a long time ago too. And things were different. I remember this little boy came in and he had obviously his stepmom with him, but he had no idea how to introduce her. He goes, this is no, she's not my mom. No, she's not. And he went through a bunch of things she was. And then finally he goes, this is a woman that lives in my house. I didn't want to laugh, but it was so
Yeah.
funny because he was struggling and everybody had, responded completely appropriately. He felt very comfortable. But, to put a kid in a position where they don't know how to introduce an adult is
Yeah.
awkward. It shouldn't be
Yeah.
happening. So
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
And my stepdaughter and I look for a lot alike. So when she was with us, if she were to see a teacher, when we were out and about or something, and they would assume, oh, is this mom? And she felt really awkward because she didn't know what to say. And then she was like, well, do I tell them everything or do I not say anything?
Right.
It was a lot of mixed emotions. It's complicated.
Yeah.
So
And I think
yeah,
that might be a conversation, again, age appropriate, to sit
yeah,
down and say, when we are out, what do you want? How do you want
yeah,
to introduce this person in your life? Because it's even funny. I've, you know, again, done parent teacher conferences with blended family things where the parents don't know how to introduce the new
yeah,
partners and who they are and how everybody's connected. And it really
yeah,
doesn't matter. That's the thing.
yeah,
But um, so let's talk a little bit because I think that a lot of this is really based on what the family is comfortable with, what the kids are comfortable with, and how the kids are responding. Let's talk about the other side of this coin. So let's talk about the dating when you have kids post divorce. Can you,
yeah,
because I think this is sometimes where people make big mistakes. They cause their kids a lot of trauma. I know that's a real
yeah.
thing. For kids, cause the kids discomfort, trauma, stress, and a lot of confusion about what's going on.
100%. So my best advice around that is if you're a divorced parent and you're thinking about dating, talk to your kids and say, hey, I think I might be ready to date. How do you feel about that? What comes up for you? Give them the space. Number one, it's preparing them for the inevitable future. You're letting them know transparently where you're at and what they can expect. And then on top of it, it gives you an opportunity to find out where they are at. What are their fears? What are their concerns? How are they feeling so that you can support them? I can't stress enough. A lot of times parents think that, okay, my child is going through a lot. I'm ill-equipped to handle this. I need professionals. And yes, professionals are phenomenal and they have a wonderful, powerful, useful role. However, there's no substitute to being the parent that helps and supports their children to transition through all of this. You know them best,
Right.
and you've been their number one source of support, and you've been there all along. They have a rapport and trust with you, and they've been relying on you for nurture, for security. There's no substitute for that. no one is going to come in magically having all the answers more than you. It's really they would be there as an additional support or somebody to work with you to support your kids if that is necessary. But you have to have a significant role in this, and that's the job. That is
Right.
what they need, and that is what's going to help them successfully navigate it and come out on the other side and be resilient and be able to move through this difficult time. But there's absolutely, like, my best advice is just be transparent, create space for them to share with you honestly what's going on for them,
Yeah.
and then help them to the best of your ability to process what that looks like. And, kids have a difficult time often distinguishing the complexities, the layers. And that's where the parent can really play an integral role in identifying those, right? Because I don't remember what it was we were talking about earlier in this conversation, but you said something. And I was thinking the same thing, right? Like, distinguishing that already is such a powerful step, because once you identify the thing that you didn't know, now you recognize there is choice.
Yeah.
But maybe you didn't notice there was choice before. And the
Right.
same thing for kids as they are dealing with very complex situations that are causing all sorts of emotions to come up. Maybe fear, maybe anxiety, maybe they're just upset, maybe, all sorts of things, but they're not necessarily able to distinguish all of that for themselves. So that's where you can come in. You can name it. You can let them sit with it a little bit, like circle back and continue the conversation. And it's interesting because it's a little bit tricky. It requires some vulnerability from the parent in order to invite that. Because if you just say, "Oh, you can share anything with me," a lot of times,
Yeah.
it kind of falls on deaf ears, because it's like, okay,
What do you mean? Really?
yeah, what do you mean? Right. Am I not going to get in trouble? That hasn't been how it's been. What about that time? Right. So
Right.
they're not necessarily going to take it at face value. But at the same time, you want to make sure to maintain healthy boundaries with your child, especially age appropriate ones. So it's tricky because, yes, there's a certain level of vulnerability that's required. And at the same time, you want to make sure that you leave the adult things for adults in your life, be it friends, family, support groups, coaches, therapists, whoever it is that you're working with.
Right. Right.
And so that's,
Yeah.
really what that would look like.
And I think this is my opinion. I don't know if it's yours, but I really think if parents are casually dating, if single adults are casually dating, you can do whatever you want. I mean, if you want to have hookups, if you want to do whatever you want to do, but make sure that you are not having multiple partners in and out of the house where the kids are aware that that's going on. And it's not because I'm a prude about it, but it is because that is, the kids don't understand. Kids, if you're dating somebody that's nice, they get to know this guy or this gal, and the kids form a bond with them, and then you break up with them, you're just repeating that cycle of adults are leaving their life faster than the kids can keep track of. So because they don't understand the difference. So if you're going to do the adult sleepovers, make sure you do them on the weekends the kids are with the other parent. That I just, it's common courtesy, I think, for your kids, but it's going to damage your children in the long run if they see that kind of behavior.
Yeah, I 100% agree. They just receive it differently. And even if you have conversations around it to explain it, they don't yet have the emotional maturity to fully understand.
Right.
And it is shaping them, because what they're left with is whatever their experience is. It's not what you say. A lot of it is what you do, because that is what's providing them cues and clues as to what they should be doing. And it is creating their blueprint for their future relationships. So to your point, you want to, where possible, model stability. And so that's why, if and when you find that special person that feels like they may be the long-term individual, involving them and allowing that relationship to evolve and allowing the bonds to form, including, again, helping your children navigate the challenges or the resistances or whatever it might be, because it might be fear-based. Maybe there's something actually there to explore. Maybe it's a matter just of time, or maybe it's about creating positive interactions and opportunities so that they can, start and kind of grow that relationship together. And usually all of the above, but
Yeah.
it that models for them what stability looks like. That models for them how to navigate conflict within themselves and also as a family. And it models for them what it's like to be supportive of somebody else going through a difficult time, not discounting their feelings, not just throwing in the towel saying they're not ready, they're never going to be ready. That's it. We never have to talk about it again. But instead, how do you work through that?
Right.
And how do you
Yes.
come to terms with it and evolve and grow and whatever the obstacles may be, how are you walking through those challenges?
Yeah. So, Maria, we're almost out of time, but there's one question that I really feel with your expertise, I would like to ask you. If if a parent, let's say I have children of my own,
Mhm.
I'm divorced. They're younger kids. They're in their early teens. They're expressing that they do not like my new partner, or they're not
Yeah.
willing to accept my new partner. But I've got to, I'm in my head, we're getting married in 2 months, and that's going to happen anyhow. Can you just talk a little bit about that dynamic? Because I've
Yeah.
seen this over and over and over again. And I know what my opinion is, but I'd like to hear you,
Yeah.
since you're an expert on step parenting and blending families.
Yeah. So that's sort of what I guess I was alluding to. And thank you for asking pointedly. So you don't want to force children into that situation. You want to be mindful of the fact that they're telling you they're not ready, which is the whole point of why I advise people to talk about it openly so that you can get a sense of where your child is at and helping them to adapt. And that may look like, again, the resistances might be just their own fears and their own misunderstanding, which will take a little bit of time to sort through. And it's a combination of specific conversations and time for a reflection and then circling back. And again, it's usually a um, multi-touch process. It doesn't get done overnight. It's not like a one and done. But also, some of this just has to do with time. Again, they're adjusting to a lot. They're adjusting to the fact that their parents, the only source of security they've ever known, the only thing that they've ever known as family, their entire world has collapsed in this separation or divorce. And that is a big adjustment for them. So it's going to take time. So I strongly suggest not putting them in a situation where you're just getting married in a couple of months, regardless of how they feel about it, because they had no say in this divorce.
Right. Right. And
They had no, yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. And I'm sorry to cut you off
No, not at all.
because I so appreciate what you were just going to say, and I cut you off, that they have no say in this. And I'm just going to throw in there that also applies, even if it's not marriage, it's moving the new partner into the
Yes,
house. It should
yes,
be the partner does not come into the home on a permanent basis until the
right.
children are comfortable with that.
Exactly.
And ready. And if you're, I'm just going to throw this in here because unfortunately this happens. If your kids are telling you, that new person is just creepy, or I don't get a good vibe around them, listen to your kids,
Yes,
because
yes,
unfortunately, there are people out there that prey on single parents to have access to children. We know that this
yeah,
is a real thing. So be really super
yeah,
careful about that. So, and I don't
yeah,
want
I
to end
couldn't
on,
agree
I
more.
don't want to end on that negative note, but I feel like I always feel that needs to be said, because
It does.
it's not nice to think about it. And we all want to think the best of people we meet.
Yeah,
But when it comes to your kids, I'm sorry, I'd rather make a mistake, err on the side of caution about why kids have that sense of, I don't want to be around that person. So, uh,
exactly. Yeah. Your judgment may be clouded because we know like you've been in an unhappy marriage, your needs weren't getting met, you're ready to move on. Move on, but to your point, listen to your children when it comes to involving them in the moving on, because like you were saying before, if you're just casually dating, it's one thing, but if you are looking for a permanent partner, it's your responsibility to consider their needs as well, because you aren't just by yourself, you are a family and
yeah.
you're looking for a new partner to join your family, not just you.
Yeah. So thank you, Maria. We have covered a ton of stuff about kids, and I knew we would because you're such an expert on this. What do you think of all of this? What do you want people to remember or keep at the top of their mind?
I think just go slow, right? And I also want to underscore, we talked a lot about the kids and why to go slow and what to listen to, but I also want to say, just like what we had been talking about, we also come with whatever blueprint from whatever experiences we had. And it's not necessarily always the best and the healthiest experience when we really think about it. Maybe a lot of our needs weren't getting met, or maybe looking back on it, we make certain realizations as adults where it's like, oh yeah, maybe that wasn't quite handled or modeled in the best way for me. You have an opportunity post or during separation or divorce, as you're addressing all of that and rebuilding your life and finding a way to move forward, you have an opportunity to address it. So take that time, right? Really process your grief, your mourning, the life you're building together, and why it didn't work, and identify that and find a way to move forward. And you get to build whatever you need to build and put in place to have a successful outcome going forward. You don't have to feel like you're stuck in the same cycle, and you get to give that gift not only to yourself, but to your children. Because again, whatever cycles that were broken that you are fixing, they are watching, and they get to fully have access to that. And then it gets to keep giving to the next generations and the next generations, and things get to keep improving. So I can't urge people strongly enough to just take your time, feel your feelings. And self-care is really such a key component of this. And as you're processing, take some time to process, but also bookend it. So you're not just emotionally drained trying to figure all the things out in one fell swoop. It doesn't work like that. So just give yourself an opportunity to create those moments of relaxation, moments of having fun, moments of processing, moments of self-care, moments of doing whatever needs to get done to move things forward.
Yeah, lovely, lovely way to wrap this up. Maria, if people want to find out more about what you do or talk to you about working with you as a step parenting and blended family coach, what is the best way to reach you?
Yeah, I'm always available on my website. Of course, my email is there. You can send an email to me through the website. And that is synergistic step parenting, .com. But I'm also available just on LinkedIn at Synergistic Step Parenting, and on Facebook at Maria Natapov. You can just chat me and or slip into the DMs, as they say.
Yeah.
I'm happy to have a conversation, happy to answer questions, and just help you explore and get clarity on where things are at and where you'd like to go.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Maria. This has been a great conversation. I love the way that you shared really concrete, practical ideas that parents can use, and some kind of cautionary tales about things not to do too. So thank you so much for all you do, Maria, because I know this is so important for families to get this right.
Thank you so much, Mardi. And thank you for inviting me on and being willing to have this conversation, because you're right. It's one that needs to be had.
It needs to be had more commonly than it is, that's for sure. And I want to thank all you for listening in to this episode of The D Shift. And don't forget to tune in again for the next one. Thanks for listening and supporting the D Shift podcast. If you would like to attend live trainings by our amazing guests and have a chance to ask questions and get answers from our experts, join the D Shift crew. For more details and to sign up, head on over to www.divorcecoachforwomen and click on the podcast page.